Well, hello everyone. It is time for wrestling all over again. So welcome back to the Tom Colohue channels on both YouTube and on Twitch as we cover what will be WWE Smackdown, featuring, not necessarily for the main event, but certainly the most exciting part of the whole thing, Sasha Banks versus Zelina Vega versus Shayna Baszler versus Rhea Ripley, which is just a combination of people that how can you fail to be excited by that combination of people? It's just a wonderful collection of wrestlers who are about to go crazy and attack each other. 4-hour viewing entertainment. So fun, fun, fun in the sun, etc. If you're currently watching on YouTube, please do remember to hit that like button. Every like makes a massive difference to the show, and as we grow individually, it's a massive help there as well. But also it means potentially we may be able to find some new subscribers as we continue our hunt to keep growing as well as we can, closer and closer to the point at which we don't have to worry too much anymore and we're just making money. Which I think everyone can agree is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Let's be hyped by that. Let's be very hyped by that. I am your host, I am Tom Colohue, and we are currently setting up for a viewership of Smackdown Live, or just Smackdown depending on what your personal preference is on the names. We are starting, as always when it comes to wrestling, well, as always when it comes to WWE, with a recap. A recap of last week where Paul Heyman had to run away. I don't know if there are actually more things planned other than the running away, but the running away is enough. The running away is just wonderfully entertaining and something that I want and need to see as much as possible because it's just fun to watch that stuff again and again and again. Let's see some broken cars, let's see some broken vehicles, let's see some crazy, let's just have some fun. Hello everyone who's already said hi. We have Sean Cena saying hello again, Tom. Hello again, Sean. Moxie saying acknowledge me. I already did. You are there. Sergio saying hey Tom. Hello Sergio. And Jason Wedge saying hey Tom mate, hope you're okay. I'm very, very good, thank you. Things are going very, very well. I'll have a bit more news on that as we go. Megan says hello. Hello Stat Queen. How are you? And Dominic says, hey Tom, are they bringing another world title after the unification? No. And is the Intercontinental Championship going to be defended at WrestleMania? Unlikely, but maybe. Also says thank you, which is lovely. Welcome, Dominic. So while we're in the recap, just a bit more news. My 2.5 promotions at my recent job look like it might be becoming 3 promotions. And the third promotion is slightly more than I expected. And by slightly, I mean considerably. So, good news there. I sometimes wonder, usually while watching these Smackdown shows, why we need to watch a full recap of basically the entire thing. And even then, why did you do the entire thing previously if you can sum it up in about 3 minutes? Bailey says, was that 9 shows next week you advertised earlier this evening? Yes, it was. More in the week, but essentially, spoiler warning on Friday, Smackdown on Friday, Hall of Fame on Friday, Stand and Deliver on Saturday, WrestleMania Night 1 on Saturday, there's 5, WrestleMania Night 2 on Sunday, spoiler warning on Monday, Raw Watch Along on Monday, NXT Watch Along on Monday. There is 9 shows between Friday and Monday within 5 days next week. That's of course not counting our Monday night show. Sorry, our Friday night show still. So when it actually catches around again, it will be 9 whole shows. Brock Lesnar is literally just stood outside of Roman Reigns' dressing room wearing a cowboy hat. Oh, he's found his championship. They're definitely mentioning the word blood a lot, aren't they? Which I don't hate, but I also don't entirely love. There's lots of talk of blood. Oh, okay. So they're doing the whole you can't touch him unless you're provoked thing. So he's going to make Roman provoke him. He's going to spend the entire night trying to make Roman provoke him. He's not even messing around. Yeah, I'm just going to wait for a good provoking. I'm just going to walk around being in his face. I love how Roman's dressing room is the bar. It's just the bar. Jermaine says, man, I love Cowboy Brock. He's such an arsehole. I love it. I respect that. He's eating the grapes. See, that's how you know he's a face. He eats grapes. He's settling in and just wrecking some champagne glasses. Okay. That's how we do things, apparently. Jason Wedge says, do you think Cody Rhodes will be at Raw on Monday, or do you think WWE will save him for WrestleMania? WrestleMania. I think they'll save him for WrestleMania. WWE advertising Ronda Rousey on the Rampage, expected to be the draw segment this week, and the Fatal 4-Way, which will be between the draw segment and the main event, which is where Sasha Banks has been for the last 4 weeks in a row. Also advertising Shinsuke Nakamura versus Jey Uso. It really feels like they're about to have a commercial break after like 5 minutes. Oh no, we're going straight into Shinsuke Nakamura, Jimmy Uso. We should get Shinsuke's introduction, then they'll probably wrap it up into a commercial break. But Boogs is looking great. Boogs has added a lot to Shinsuke Nakamura's act. He just connects with the audience in a way that Shinsuke didn't quite. People went for the music, people went for the wrestling, but promos were a weak point of Shinsuke Nakamura. It's why they paired him with Sammy. But here's Rick Boogs, delivering the catchphrases. Sean said, I don't know how I can get away with this on YouTube and Twitter, but I saw a clip of JD's current podcast, saying that Vince and Bruce are the reason for Triple H's health condition and both should be arrested for it and for killing what Triple H created. I swear he's as worse as Ryback. The most infuriating thing about all of that is that he has a really strong audience, which means that people actively support that. Megan says, I noticed he got the belt back, and the more I see the shirt, the more I kinda like it. I know, right? I'm not necessarily a check shirt guy, but I can get behind it if it's got that on the back as well. That's just quite fun. I'm also a big fan of the fact that Pat McAfee, also a big help in keeping Shinsuke Nakamura way over, he's always trying to break Michael Cole, and he's always succeeding at it. Simon says, Sasha's match is on before the main event segment, before Brock and Roman, according to Sean Ross Sapp and Fightful Select. Yep. Sean says, do you see Boogs and Nakamura winning the belts? I do, actually. I'm pretty confident the reason the IC title was taken away from Shinsuke was to make this tag team. Nakamura at this moment is working for Boogs, to help Boogs get over. It's working. In the same way, Nakamura himself is staying over. It's very similar to Sheamus with Rich Holland and Butch. A very, very similar situation. Megan says, Boogs and Nakamura are going to have one hell of an entrance next week. They are. Next week's WrestleMania, isn't it? WrestleMania is 8 days away and it genuinely doesn't feel like it. And Simon says, I thought you accidentally wrongly said for a second then that Ronda was in on AEW Rampage tonight. Well, Rampage is tonight, but I don't think Ronda's going to be there. She's no Kayla Sparks, what can I say? Jermaine says, I believe Sasha's match will be the match of the night due to the fact that you have 4 really good workers in that match, and I believe it's going to end in a big time brawl. There will definitely be some massive brawls incoming. We are getting a full recap of Boogs versus Jimmy. Is it Jimmy? Boogs versus Jey, which happened 2 weeks ago. We also got a recap of it last week, and now we get another recap of it. There's a point at which you just recap upon recap upon recap. But what can I say? Sergio says, is Brock Lesnar going to continue to show up after WrestleMania if he loses? No, he'll go home for a little bit. And Jason says, are you a big fan of Rich Holland? Do you see him as a future mid-card champion? Barely know the man. I barely know the man. So I can't say I'm a big fan of him. I don't know much of his work. Do I see a future mid-card champion? I don't know. Haven't seen enough of him, unfortunately. And Jay Quick says, hi Tom. Hello Jay Quick, how you doing, mate? Hope you're well. We are getting the full entrances before its commercial break, because it's coming, and we all know it's coming, but they're giving us the full entrances first. Sean says someone needs to update the WWE website. Cesaro is still listed on the SmackDown roster. This is something that the WWE have a habit of. You see, the WWE aren't convinced that Cesaro won't sign a new deal with the WWE. If you remember a little while ago, Drew Gulak had his contract expire from the WWE. 2 weeks later, he had a new deal because he'd shown them he was serious. There may still be a negotiation ongoing with Cesaro. Boogs and Nakamura. There's a brawl going on. The Usos started it. Boogs and Nakamura seem like they're finishing it. This, by the way, is to get the crowd hot and to make sure nobody changes the channel between now and the commercial break ending. Jay Quick says the chickens need Brock home after Mania. You're not wrong. He does, after all, run a farm. He's very happy with the farm. Justin says, who do you believe Lesnar will feud with after Reigns? Another Lashley match, Edge, Drew. Hard to say. I would like to see him give back a little bit and work a little further down the card. I would like to see Brock versus Sheamus. That's what I'd like to see. And Jay Quick says, I'm amazing because Sable won't tend to the chicken. Well, I know that that's like two separate parts, but I'm going to take that as one because it's funny. Jay Quick says, I'm amazing because Sable won't tend to the chicken. Sean says, is Drew Gulak someone Tony Khan would take? He does have Tony Nese after all. It's hard to say no when it comes to anybody available, given Tony Khan's record for hiring everybody available. Like, everyone. And hey, he needs people for Ring of Honor. He does need that. Justin says, Lesnar versus Owens always interested me. I think that could be a fun one. From what I can tell, Lesnar and Owens get on pretty well as well. Jay Quick says Tony Khan would take the Easter Bunny. Yep, but he won't take the Gobbledygooker, which ultimately makes him the best in the world, apparently. If anyone missed it, I did decide a little bit earlier on today to pay tribute to Triple H in my own way. So I tweeted out a picture of myself with him. I'm going to link that tweet and also read it out for anyone who doesn't want to pop onto Twitter at the moment. So linking it in the Twitch and linking it in the YouTube for anyone who wants to check it out. To read it out, in case you're not available to do so at the moment, I say the Attitude Era was built on the backs of many, and for me Triple H was the one I connected with most. Along with Steve Austin and The Rock, he made me tune in every week. His ladder match at SummerSlam 98 made me a fan. Happy retirement to one of the greatest to ever do it. And then I have a picture of myself and Triple H there. So I just wanted to pay my own little tribute. We did have a show earlier on today where the big news we talked about was Triple H, and we shared a lot of stories, which was great, and I loved that. But I did send a tweet out afterwards, so I just thought I'd give a quick shout out there. Domain says, hey Tom, you ever watched that old show Three's Company? No, it's not something we really got here in the UK, I don't think. Sergio says, has Ricochet or Finn Balor's WrestleMania opponent been revealed yet? Technically no. It doesn't look like Ricochet is going to have an opponent for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. You probably spotted that I really sped up my conversation there in order to get it in before I sneezed. As regards Finn Balor though, the plan is a rematch against Damian Priest that should be announced on this week's Raw. Jay Quick says, what a great pick. Thank you, Jay Quick, I appreciate that. I worked hard on it. That was after an interview with Triple H. I still have the audio of that somewhere, so I'll have to check it out at some point. KJ says, Rick Boogs gets more over by the week. One Vince project, and it's been great. Boogs is one of those, he appeared in several different guises in NXT, but was never really the big deal that he could have been. He steps up, and because of the character and the person he's with, it works. The plan is that NXT 2.0 will produce more Rick Boogs and less Tommaso Ciampa, essentially. WrestleScope says, hey Tom. Hey WrestleScope, how you doing? And Sean says, as a big Triple H fan, your top 5 WrestleMania matches of Triple H. Ooh. I think the first match with Taker is my favourite, at 17. I liked the drama at the end of 15, when he reunited with China, and then later on they both turned heel. That was just a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I think he did a good job with Roman, to be honest. I actually quite liked that. Wasn't a fan of the Batista match. I think he did great work with Cena. But WrestleMania 20 for me, I think, is his best work. WrestleMania 20. Against Shawn Michaels and name redacted. Justin says, could Khan technically move talent to Ring of Honor from AEW? Just curious, if someone signs of AEW, could it be moved to Ring of Honor? I don't know if that question makes sense. Makes perfect sense, and yes, he could. As Ring of Honor doesn't have anyone under contract, anyone in AEW could turn up there with no worries. Jermaine says, I have a feeling Ricochet's opponent's going to be either Humberto or Angel Garza, or a handicap. I mean, stranger things have happened, and honestly, they deserve to be on the card. Jay Quick says, Triple H was always one of my top favourites. Mine too. He was the guy for me. He was the one. And, well, he still is. I still like to go back and watch Triple H versus Jericho Last Man Standing. That was a hell of a match. Nakamura is controlling the match so far. I do like a bit of the juxtaposition here. Jey Uso is the only one with real colour in the ring, just a little bit of red in his hair. Okay, I thought for a moment he was up to 6 on the count, but he was actually only up to 3. I was already count out was coming. KJ says, Tom, when or if WWE goes to the UK in September, will you be going? I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to look at the time and see whether or not I have time off work and so on and so forth. If so, I'll probably make a big thing of it, but I can't say for certain. J-Dub suggests WrestleMania 12, Triple H versus the Ultimate Warrior, a classic. I do remember that. I remember that well. WrestleMania 12 is one of my favourites. I remember the pedigree, I remember the Ultimate Warrior getting up and being like, nah. Triple H literally buried at the time. Sean says, would the House of Black get over in WWE? I don't know. It depends how they are presented. It's hard to say this will get over or that won't get over because Vince McMahon will change it to something he thinks will get over more. Sergio says, I don't remember if Triple H versus Chris Jericho at Mania 18 was good as it was overshadowed by Rock versus Hogan. It was. I'm glad it was the main event because it was for the Undisputed Championship. But it was during a time when the championships were starting to fade a little. The match so far has been very slow-paced. Jey and Nakamura should have natural chemistry with the styles that they wrestle. And it's not terrible, but that was a horrible fall by Nakamura there. A lot of daylight between the kick and the head. Gotta be some daylight, but not that much. Jey Uso going for a tope. Less daylight between that kick and the head. And we have another commercial break. Justin says, I feel like Jey Uso should have won the IC belt during main event Jey Uso. The IC belt was being passed around a lot at that time. I personally would see no issue with it going to someone who would treat it very well, such as, for example, Jey Uso. I don't think that's a bad situation. And Jada says, it's a classic for all the wrong reasons. You are not wrong, sir. Joe Quick says, my fiance just told me that she will go with me to wrestling events even if they are out of state. Well, you got to make that happen then, man. You got to make that happen. And Simon says, who do you see going into the Impact Hall of Fame 2022? I don't watch enough Impact to really be able to say. Sean says, was WrestleMania 12 Triple H's first Mania? I do believe it was. Fun fact, he was escorted to the ring that night by Sable. Bailey says Triple H was a mega heel when he interrupted Stephanie's kayfabe wedding with the scene from the drive-thru wedding chapel. Was he? Because he was supposed to be, but he was having so much fun doing it and everyone hated Mr. McMahon so much that he kind of got over from that. I remember watching at the time, he got real cheers. Justin says, was Triple H ever tag champ? Yes, he was. Most notably as part of the two-man power trip with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Sergio says, what is your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers? See, a lot of people, when it comes to the Mount Rushmore concept, they try and say who made the biggest impact on wrestling. I don't. I care about who made the biggest impact on me. So it's people like Undertaker, Triple H, at the moment Roman. After that, I will probably go Becky. For me, it's not all time because it's personal. I don't give a shit about Hulk Hogan. Never have. I didn't really watch much Ric Flair. For me, Undertaker, Triple H, Roman Reigns and Becky Lynch. Yeah, that's where I'd go. That's where I'd go. Jay Quick says he did everybody a favour by interrupting Test. It's debatable whether or not Test was over, like pre-testicles. It's debatable and, you know, it's not impossible, is what I'm trying to say. But certain things worked against him. Most notably the arrival of the Radicals, which was, of course, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn, and Name Redacted. That really put the end to the Test push. That was before the testicles, but even then it wasn't a great push, was it? Certainly put the end to D'Lo Brown's push, and he was a former Eurocontinental champion, after all. Everybody forgets the Eurocontinental champion. We are back in the ring with more kicks. And in the middle of the match, we're getting a recap of Brock Lesnar walking into the locker room of Roman Reigns. Way to show how important your match was. Wow. Jermaine says, I don't know if you can call Triple H versus Sting a match at WrestleMania more of a nostalgia act, if anything. Fair. But the feud leading into that match was awesome. Could have been the turning point for Dolph Ziggler. Tell you that. He was there. He was there. I still believe he should have won the Royal Rumble. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think Dolph versus Brock was going to work out. But I think he should have won the Rumble. J-Dub says, Mount Rushmore for me, Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, HBK, and you don't get a stand-in, mate. You don't get a stand-in. Sean says, Shane Helms tweeted yesterday he signed a Legends contract with WWE. Yep. Fired recently. Came back and was just like, yeah, just give me a new contract. So they did. They are essentially doing something at the moment, the WWE, called fire and rehire. Justin says, Test wasn't over until TNA, but we know why that team was over. Fair. It was over because of the TNA. The Test and Albert. Albert became an Intercontinental Champion after that, don't you know? Shinsuke Nakamura is distracted by Jimmy. Takes a super kick. 1, 2. They had me on that one. Not gonna lie, they had me on that one. J-Dub says we should keep track of the amount of time used for recaps. If you take out the recaps and the commercial breaks, you end up with about an hour of SmackDown. Like 100%. Whoa, 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 whoa. You do not forget Boogs' guitar. Boogs finds an opportunity. Apparently they've swapped Jimmy and Jay. Jay was supposed to be the one wrestling. Another kick from Nakamura. Lots of kicks in this match. I feel like I'm watching X-Pac. And a lovely Kinshasa. Very high up, I'll tell you that. Nakamura picks up the win. This is apparently all about building momentum to WrestleMania, while at the same time making it clear that anyone can win on the day. Wrestling doesn't always make sense, but it doesn't always have to. Simon says, love all the Test chat, very underrated big man. His big Hoss match with Brock at King of the Ring 2002 was awesome. I do remember that. Test was never really considered that much of a powerhouse because he was already in the land of the giants, but still, he could deliver. Justin mentions Lord Tensai. Yep, Albert became Lord Tensai. It's amazing how people change. Okay, we're getting a push for Raw because we are once again covering a recap, a Raw rebound for Kevin Owens and Steve Austin. We're just getting Raw recaps in SmackDown. I know they've been doing this a lot, but I still can't quite stand it. Kevin Owens, of course, winding everybody up in a very, very fun way. Sergio says, so many recaps. Yep, absolutely. Far too many. Jay Quick says, I'm sure Tom is buckling up for the biggest week of wrestling. It's going to be a long but fun and exhausting week. I've taken the week off my actual work because it's going to be that busy. I do love how the bald cap did not stay on Kevin Owens' head at all. It was breaking open so much. WWE and Thomas fan says, I've actually noticed in the beginning as John Cena is announcing it says you can't see me forever. So is that a hint that John Cena might be retiring soon? No hint whatsoever. And Sean says, B-Fab said she'd be open to return to WWE. A lot of people would be. A lot of people that the WWE fired would be very happy to come back. That seems to surprise people, but no. It's a very well paid job. Jason says, do you think they will do an Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal again at WrestleMania? If they do, my pick would be Omos if his rumoured match with Bobby Lashley doesn't happen. The reason Omos versus Bobby Lashley is being rumoured and is apparently going to happen is because they are not going to do a WrestleMania Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. This is a really long recap. This is just they're recapping the entire damn segment. Simon says, my pro wrestling Mount Rushmore is Sasha, Stone Cold, Punk, Team Extreme, Lita included, X-Pac. So your Mount Rushmore, which is only 4 people, is basically everyone. So it's not around Mount Rushmore. Bailey says, when Triple H and Stephanie actually got married, they had to convince the priest that it wasn't a storyline for him to go ahead with the ceremony. One of my favourite things about wrestling in the Attitude Era is when when The Undertaker was trying to kidnap Stephanie, he was outside Vince McMahon's home. So Vince calls the police, and the police are like, you're watching this on TV. It was great. They did not believe it was real. It was fantastic. WWE and Thomas fan says, I don't know why, but I found something that Drake Maverick got rehired by WWE in February. That's the rumour. Yes, that's the rumour. Jake says, do you think EC3's new company will last? No. He's never going to make any money with that concept. Oh, bloody hell. Brock, not a fan of champagne, so he just spat it all over everyone. I say everyone. He spat it on a leg. I feel like Roman's just not going to bother today. It's wrecking the place. Simon says, yeah, he's now a creative writer on the Raw brand. Simon, you got saucy stuff. Where did you hear that from? KJ says, SmackDown's crowds for a long time now has been great. I think essentially, since the return from the pandemic, the crowds have been more than willing to jump in and get behind what the WWE wants from them. That's a positive because it means they're getting hyped about everything. It's great. Also shows, I feel, that the idea that you only get really, really excited crowds outside of WWE, not true anymore. Sean says, and this is regards the Drake Maverick piece, that was from What Culture, so I don't know if it was trustworthy. What Culture do not report news. What they do is they aggregate news. So they will say, according to, first. Essentially, that's their way of saying, if this is wrong, it's not on us. Jadeb says, Lesnar is so big that the champagne bottle in his hand looks like a regular beer bottle. He's a giant, and much like Chandler Bing, sometimes he likes a little miniature. Jadeb says, EC3's show had about 8 people in attendance. Yeah, it was a basement. It was a basement. And the whole thing is like, we're just going to really fight. Well, if you want to do stuff on the top rope, you can't. There's an air conditioner unit right there. Braun Strowman basically headbutted it. KJ says Fightful tweeted how the Boogs Nakamura act has gotten old, still very over, and will be. Yeah, I would disagree with that personally. I really still quite enjoy them. Oh, thank you, Sean, for clarifying. What Culture said that about BFAB. Once again, they still don't report their own news. Someone else will have actually reported it. They'll just have aggregated it. They just repeated it. WWE and Thomas fan says, man, when Cody comes out of WrestleMania, that crowd is going to explode. Yeah, absolutely. The crowd there are made to pop for Cody. Simon says, do you think the Briscoes end up in AEW? No, I do not. And Sean says, really surprised we went through a Raw in Chicago without a CM Punk chant. Crowds are more willing to go along with it. Also, the WWE have more control over crowd audio than they did before. Thank you, Simon, for sourcing. Heard it on Pro Wrestling Inc. Jermaine says, my Mount Rushmore will be Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Ric Flair and Sasha Banks. That will always be my top 4. That is a very good list there, Jermaine. WWE and Thomas fan says, so I have a feeling that Seth Rollins is going to be cutting a promo in the ring at WrestleMania, saying he should get a WrestleMania moment when the lights go out and see polka dots going up to the ramp. It won't be polka dots. They are not planning to book Cody as the son of Dusty. They're not planning that. They are planning to book Cody as the American Nightmare. Sergio says, hopefully those Nakamura and Boogs car commercials are over, because last week was pretty weird. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Though I still believe they're going to ride that car down the ramp at WrestleMania into the ring. And then probably drive off with the championships in the back. Jay Quick also says the crowd will explode for Stone Cold at Mania. Here's the thing no one wants to admit. The crowd's going to go wild for Logan Paul. The crowd's going to go wild for Ronda Rousey. The crowd's going to go wild for Johnny Knoxville. Simon says, did you not like The Rock, Tom? Why do you say that, Simon? I've never suggested anything of the kind. At no point have I said that. Jacob says, kind of makes you wonder what's up. The Braun is in EC3's company. Is he not made for the big leagues? How shitty would you feel when even Tony Khan won't hire you? Braun Strowman wasn't sure he wanted to return to wrestling. For a while he waited on Wyndham Rotunda to make his decision, but Wyndham Rotunda is doing something else. So essentially, Adam Scherr is just doing something else for now. WWE and Thomas fan says, I can just imagine during Rollins' promo, everyone's going to be chanting, Cody, Cody, Cody. And then when he comes out, he's going to get a Punk-like pop. It's going to be huge. It'll be absolutely huge. They are mentioning Hall of Fame, which I think can be classified as recap at this point. But The Undertaker, the first ballot Hall of Famer to be inducted by Vince McMahon into the Hall of Fame. I'm interested to see if we get any more announcements because they're running out of time now, but it will be on social media. The induction ceremony, of course, immediately following SmackDown next Friday, so that it gets in the way of Rampage. They are also announcing now Shad Gaspard to receive the 2022 Warrior Award. They are explaining what happened to Shad Gaspard 2 years ago. Several pictures of his son, which is one of the reasons they contacted the family to make sure that was okay. Courage and compassion that embodied the Ultimate Warrior, not the strongest line. Justin says, Braun Strowman will be back to WWE soon. I suspect he will, to be honest. I do believe we'll see him again in WWE, just for less money. Drew McIntyre is backstage with Kayla Braxton. We're talking Baron Corbin, and Drew McIntyre was like, no, stop talking. Drew McIntyre has been basically cutting the same promo for the last year. It's interesting with the amount of factions now that Drew stands alone and continues to stand alone. He's got friends. I mean, you look at the Viking Raiders, they've backed him up on several occasions. But I do think this may be the only thing we get about Drew and Baron Corbin this week. A backstage promo each. But it is the same promo. I don't like this guy. I'm going to beat him up. That's the standard Drew promo. Couple of smiles along the way. Doesn't necessarily look like we're going to see Drew McIntyre wrestling this week. If you're currently watching on YouTube, please do remember that you can hit that thumbs up button. That little thumbs up can make a massive difference to viewership here and give us a better chance of gaining new subscribers. As we grow, of course, you get a lot more development on the channel. I potentially make a bit more money, which means you get more shows because I can get closer to making a living doing this, and I'm able to spend more time and dedicate more efforts finding exclusive wrestling news that you can't find anywhere else. So please do remember to hit like and subscribe if you've not already. What we're getting right now is a Baron Corbin recap about bum-ass Corbin. Kayla Braxton nearly laughing there. I want this to come back. I need this to come back. The WWE are teasing it hard. This recap just heavily suggests Corbin's coming back. You know, the good one. Not this one. He really suits the hat, though. Like, I'm never annoyed by the hat. When you look at the whole thing, rather than looking at a bit of it in a vacuum, it's not a bad story for Corbin. He's been able to make this work. And it's a good spot at Mania as well. I mean, just having a one-on-one match at Mania is pretty good. Also, this is the first time they made Baron Corbin look like anything resembling a threat. Which I'm going to tweet because that stands out for me. First time they made him look like anything of a threat. Alright, so this recap is the first time the WWE have made Corbin look like any sort of threat to Drew McIntyre. That's all I'll say. Once again though, this is kind of a real long recap. So we're a third of the way through the show, we've had one match and a hell of a lot of recaps. That's a really nice top that Baron Corbin's wearing. Sean says, I hope JTG comes out to Crime Time at the Hall of Fame ceremony. I do believe he will. You gotta honour and respect the man you're going there for. Simon says, because you're a huge Triple H fan, I was a Stone Cold guy, most people were just a fan of one of them. No. I didn't really get Stone Cold, but there's a difference between not being a fan and not liking someone. I liked Triple H. I liked watching him wrestle. I also enjoyed watching everyone else wrestle. KJ says, I've just seen a cool post. Roman's title reign is in 570 plus days in. Last time we seen The Rock was 900 days ago. It's been over 185 days since Alexa Bliss has been in a Raw ring. Is that a cool post? That's just stats, isn't it? I mean, we have to respect stats. I mean, Megan's here after all. Baron Corbin's still not a fan of most of Madcap Moss's jokes. Fight Night are on their way down to the ring. I'm expecting this week we see Xavier Woods, but I expected it last week as well, let's be fair. Sean says they usually induct a tag team in the Hall of Fame every year. Surprised there isn't one going in this year. Yeah, the plan was the Hardy Boys. Miami Heat says Vicky Guerrero deserves a Hall of Fame one day. Probably will get it one day. I mean, maybe inducted by her husband, Edge. Remember when they were married? That was a thing. KJ says, we may not all like Drew playing around with Corbin, but he's super over, not a single boo. Keep him out of the title picture until he beats Roman. As much as anything, that's a key point, because fans get really, really sick of seeing the same wrestlers do the same things. And particularly when someone's in and around the title picture, this is making it so the fans are thinking, Drew deserves better. And then when he goes up against Roman, it's like, yeah, Drew deserves this. Instead of what would actually happen if he was still in the title picture. It's like, Drew doesn't deserve this. You've got to overcommit in the WWE until everyone turns on someone. Justin says, Braun was over. People on internet didn't like him, but he was arena over. Pandemic era hurt him and Elias. I agree. There is a reason we barely saw Elias during the entire pandemic. His entire thing was working a crowd, and he was fantastic at it. Simon says, do you see AEW now basically using Ring of Honor like a SmackDown? Proper 2-hour show like a brand split? No, not at all. Not even close. Jadip says, okay, these recaps are brutal. So much so I might turn on 2K22 to make a good SmackDown. Do it, man. Do it. It's commercials and recaps. This is not a good SmackDown so far. KJ says, Paul Corbin should have ended up being a huge babyface. We were getting there. Jason says, how the mighty have fallen. Drew winning the Royal Rumble and beating Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Now this year he's going against Happy Corbin. And if you believe how the mighty have fallen, then when they move him back into the championship picture, you won't be annoyed. Sergio says, something about the pace of the show so far feels off. I agree. We know the second hour is going to be pretty top heavy because you're going to get, on the draw segment, Charlotte and Ronda. You're going to get the Fatal 4-Way women's match. And you're going to get Roman and Brock. But so far, nothing's really happened. At least nothing of any actual consequence. Brock Lesnar has arrived, and Nakamura and Jimmy Uso have had another match leading towards a tag match. It doesn't really matter who won that. Jadeb says, too much TV time for Corbin. Akira Tozawa and Tamina are funnier than these two clowns. I wouldn't know, I skipped their segments. Megan says, Butcher the daft name. The Bruiserweight was a complete package. He was. And the Butcherweight, maybe one day too. I feel bad saying that. Sean says, I don't get what Vince sees in Corbin. In my opinion, he isn't that good in the ring. His US title reign isn't memorable. I think he's just a mid-card guy. It's not just Vince. Everyone in WWE loves this guy. Baron Corbin is genuinely beloved by everyone I've spoken to backstage. Everyone. Incredibly safe, incredibly reliable, and gets the reactions that they're looking for. He's a classic heel, like a proper Attitude Era throwback. I love the guy too. Austin says, oh damn, I didn't know there was a watch party. Well, welcome, mate. There's a watch party every Friday for SmackDown. Every single Friday. KJ says, fans were turning on him on Twitter. He was getting slight boos when the fans came back, but now since coming to SmackDown, he's getting pops that he wouldn't have gotten when he was champ. Yeah. They have protected Drew by keeping him away from the championship for this long. We all know where it's going. We all know Drew versus Roman is the future, but they don't have to sort of rub our noses in it. Instead, they can take it away to a point when everybody has that moment of, God, he needs to go away now. He needs to get back into the main event picture. He doesn't deserve to be this low down. You need someone as good as Baron Corbin to make you feel that Drew is, well, that he is beneath Drew. Jason says, do you see a Drew heel turn in the future? I really hope so. I much preferred the Scottish psychopath to the Scottish warrior. I just felt he was a better and more entertaining character. And I really hope he comes back. Simon said, it's National Tolkien Reading Day. Today, much love and respect to Professor Tolkien for creating Middle-earth, greatest fantasy series of all time. I was myself a very big Lord of the Rings fan. Tried reading the Silmarillion. That shit was hard. But I was a big Tolkien fan, and a lot of my own writing has that element to it. I recently finished the first chapter of my own fantasy series, which I hope one day people are interested enough to join me while I read through here for people. But I don't have it set up and lined up yet, but one day, I'm sure I'll be able to read some for you. KJ says, let's be real, Roman versus poor Corbin could have been money. Yes, it could have. It absolutely could have. I felt like that's where they were going. But apparently in the end, not so much. Sean says, Roman and Brock the main event of Raw this week? No. Why would they do that? That's the main event of WrestleMania. Why would they do it twice in 1 week? Justin says, if fans don't see Alexa, Bayley or Asuka Raw Smackdown after Mania, should we be concerned about them or their spot? Yes and no. Yes and no. I wouldn't be too worried about Alexa or Bayley. A match against the New Day. Yeah, this is not... Did kind of spoil our return, didn't they? We know it's not going to be Big E. The King has returned. Is he actually coming? There we go. New crown. A nice new crown. I like that. He's been cleared for a while now, but they kept him out for storyline reasons. He would at this point be introducing you all 3 members of the New Day versus all 3 members of Fight Night for WrestleMania, but not this time. Simon says no one's ever kicked out of the end of days finisher, the most protected finisher in the business currently. Yeah, 100%. That's because Baron Corbin takes a lead from someone called Scott Hall. Scott Hall never used the Razor's Edge if he wasn't going to win a match. Baron Corbin never uses End of Days if he's not going to win a match. It's very clever. KJ says, I'm surprised they don't go all out for a Barkley show like they do in MSG, especially with them having so much space in this arena. They have always felt like MSG is their spiritual home. It's not, but they've decided it is. Oh, Jay Quick, I do hope that's what happens. You get to go to SummerSlam. Would love it. KJ says the announcer just spoiled his return. Indeed. Indeed, they gave that one away pretty hard. 10 Feet says, Tom, do you think we'll have a single title this year? Yes, there will be many singles titles this year. Jadeb says, does anyone here play 2K22? If so, what is the trick to winning a tag match in a decent amount of time? I feel like they're due for an update because whether it's a traditional tag, trio or 8-man, it is almost impossible to win by pin because the pin breaks are out of control. Can't get a pin past them, usually have to win by submission. Now here's the thing. Legally, and you can ask the Revival about this, that was a quick win. Xavier Woods might still be carrying a bit of a knock. Legally, in wrestling, you're allowed 1 pin break. Just the one pin break. But I always found that with, like, even No Mercy way back when, the pin breaks were ridiculous. You'd start to cover someone, their tag partner would run in, break up the pinfall again and again and again and again. It was ridiculous. Just bring in the actual law, as it were. Should be easy. John says, Roman and Brock are going to be on Raw this week. That's why I was asking. It won't be to wrestle a match. It won't be. KJ says the ring announcer said, accompanied by Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston. Wonderful. Wonderful. Roman is sat in a limo. He's not coming in. Sergio says, does the New Day have a match at WrestleMania? Yes, but it hasn't been announced yet. Tenfold says, I'm sorry Tom, I was asking if you think Sasha will have a singles title run this year. No, I do not. I think she'll have a tag title run and that will be for a long time. And Jadeb says, for a second there I thought I saw Pete Dunne in the ring. Butch is very similar, like they have similar looks, but Pete Dunne's a completely different entity. Pete Dunne's a record breaker. Simon says, do you think Vince would try to stop TK running a show at MSG with AEW like he did Ring of Honor, New Japan back in 2019? Vince didn't do that, but yeah, Vince probably would. Okay. So the story is they're still driving there. And they just send what, a selfie promo? Here comes our draw segment. Ronda Rousey's on her way down to the ring. I'd imagine we're going to get a commercial break after her entrance. All smiles. Wearing the leather again. I'm still a fan of the fact that Ronda Rousey pays tribute to Rowdy Roddy Piper by wearing his miniskirt on the way down to the ring. Always respect it. Jacob says Pete Dunne and Butch are cousins. They look very similar. Right, so the segment is Ronda's on the rampage and she walks down grinning like a wildcat. Not quite working for me. Not quite working for me. I've already read that one. Jadeb says, I've never noticed the pin breaks until this new version. Out of control. I swear I played the game the other night. I was playing a 3-on-3. I was Drew McIntyre and Viking Raiders versus Imperium. It was 46 minutes and 3 seconds and I won by submission. Could not get the pin. Way back when I was playing No Mercy, I would always hit my finisher, change my direction, attack whoever was on the standing on the apron, change direction again, pin before they could get back up. But I'd have to wait for them to start getting up in order to get that 1 second delay that they wouldn't reach me in time. It was so bad that I never wanted to play tag matches. KJ says Ronda on the Rampage, AEW Rampage, and maybe women's fatal 4-way main events followed by Brock Roman. Yeah, that's pretty much what I expect. I'd imagine there's going to be at least one more match, but I don't know what it would be. What I would say is that after this, we're definitely going to get at least something about Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville as well. Outside of this, what other matches are from the SmackDown side on WrestleMania? I'm not sure. There will be a reason that they're using the word Rampage, so that if you search for Rampage, you are redirected to WWE sites, at least for the next couple of hours. Tenfold says, you mentioned that the 4 horsewomen would be all Hall of Fame people. Do you think all would be first ballot? No, I think 3 of them would be, unfortunately. Jason says they should put WWE Raw and SmackDown on the BBC here. No adverts then. Yeah, the problem is with no adverts, what you'd end up with is gaps in your program. I don't know if you know this, but SmackDown is not a 2-hour show. It's a 1 hour and 20 minute show. Then when you take out the recaps, it's a 50-minute show. And Sean says, Becky said she was drunk when she called Trish Stratus a legend. It's a good line. It's a good line. Sometimes you actually don't have to work all that hard to be brilliant. Sometimes you don't have to work all that hard. Jadeb says, is it sad? I remember good matches from the video games. I played a Hell in a Cell in 2K19 that was HBK versus Undertaker. It was a fantastic match, about 30 minutes. They're all long. They're all unnecessarily long. When it comes to good matches, it's not easy to say for certain. You know, I feel the way I feel in certain things. Jermaine says, I thought it was me, but can someone explain to me why is Ronda smiling and grinning walking down the ramp all the way to the ring when she got attacked by Charlotte Flair and was busted up by her? Because she doesn't seem to care much about it. She's been told to smile, so she's on a mission to just constantly smile. Okay, SmackDown's come back on. They're just playing the SmackDown theme. And we are watching Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. They're going to play a recap while she's literally stood in the ring. God damn it. We have a recap literally while Ronda Rousey is standing in the ring waiting for something. This is terrible. Oh. Right. Let's make a tweet. I know SmackDown is usually recap heavy anyway, but when you have a recap of weeks ago Ronda versus Charlotte, when Ronda is literally standing in the ring doing nothing, what is actually the point? You could have just not had her come down yet. Shouldn't be difficult. Sean says, did Asuka have a choice in who ended her streak? No. It was a WrestleMania match. No, you don't get to choose for when it comes to WrestleMania. B pay-per-views you usually get, but not WrestleMania. Bailey says, what do you see as the order at which the 4 Horsewomen retire from active wrestling which would lead them to the Hall of Fame? That's a hard one. When it comes to actually retiring, I don't think, for example, Sasha Banks ever will. I don't think she will ever say, I retire. Meanwhile, I think Bailey will just never stop wrestling. WrestleScope says, this is typical crap from WWE. 2-hour show, 45 minutes of video recaps. Ain't that the truth? We're building up to WrestleMania and we're just... It's like they did all the booking and now we've just got 4 weeks of waste. 4 weeks of just wasted time. Okay, so she flubbed her lines. She flubbed her line, tried to come up with something to cover it, didn't quite work for me. Yes, you have to say women's. I don't like it either, but it is how it is. You have to differentiate your championships. Charlotte's in a studio? Sean says another episode of Recap Down. Indeed, this week. So Charlotte is apparently seeing this by video link. I always wonder what footage you see when you're on the other side of the video link. Do you actually get a view from the top of the Tron? Just all the way into the ring, just a tiny little person in the distance and all the little ants around it? Or is this just pre-rehearsed, pre-recorded as per usual? I like that she had to say her own name. She kept count of breaking her own arm because she was proud. Oh, not her own arm. They're not really escalating this feud. It started bad, it's getting worse. Here's a fun fact. Usually when these segments are pre-recorded, whoever's in the ring has to go backstage and rehearse so that they have room to say their thing before the other person jumps in. Because it's pre-recorded, they can't control it. John says, is it just me or is Ronda scripted? Ronda does script herself largely. However, for a segment like that with a lot of rehearsal time, yeah, that's more scripting. Well, that draw segment didn't quite go over the segment. It's supposed to. It's supposed to go over the full segment. They are pushing WrestleMania Saturday. In the image for that, Ronda once again, massive smile on her face. And we're going back to Brock Lesnar. Logically, we have to see Sami Zayn next. Would you like some rotten grapes, did he say? Brock, you literally just sat there. We should get that man a magazine. He had previous magazines. I'm slightly behind you guys. Brock wants to do some smashing. Everyone likes getting smashed by the big dog. Indeed, Ricochet. Interesting. A show of faith. So who's he working with? Who's he working tonight? Simon says, do you see Paige Van Zandt getting the same mainstream attention for AEW as Ronda for the WWE? No. Paige Van Zandt is not Ronda Rousey. Jason Wedge says, do you see any of the big pay-per-views being in England in the future? No, not yet. It'll be a while yet before that happens. Sean says, Ricochet our draw segment? Certainly seems so. JW shouts, Ricochet a top volume. What was that ridiculous dance? That, essentially, was a man who didn't land as he was expecting to. And KJ says, Ricochet's reigns has been very good so far, to be honest. Won the title, retained in main event the next week, took off last week, now he's back in the ring. Against a Los Lothario. It seems like essentially they're giving him a showcase. We have spoken about Los Lotharios. They deserved an opportunity. I don't think they're going to be taking any championships. But it's an opportunity and it gets them on the card. They've been featured fairly regularly. I can see them being champions at some point in future. Even though I'm not really pro Kiss Cam, it's interesting seeing who ends up being on the Kiss Cam each week. We had Kayla Sparks. We had Roxy last week. Who have we got this week? You can see the plan. I could see the plan before they did. That ain't right. Now, if you've been doing your research, you'll recognize her as well. Always interesting seeing that security is stood right next to wherever she ends up. KJ says, who called this match? Someone just mentioned it. Someone did mention it a little higher up. Not sure who it was. Apparently this is a championship contenders match. Ricochet versus Humberto. Miami Heat says, if they replace Ronda for Sasha or Naomi, everybody's going to care about it. Okay, we have to stop thinking that nobody cares about Charlotte Ronda. The build's not great, but people do pop for Ronda. Jadeb says, there are so many recaps. I'm thinking I'm watching the live feed and having deja vu. And KJ says, Paige Van Zandt loses too much to be a star like Ronda. Now, one sec. KJ also says, well, she lost too much. I mean, she's still known, but not as much as Ronda. She said she didn't like WWE's plans for her, maybe because she would be losing. It is just after the hour. I'm going to take a quick commercial break on my side. I won't be gone for more than, say, 2 minutes. So please don't go anywhere, and I'll see you in just a moment. It was Sean. It was. Hello again everyone, welcome back to the Tom Colohue channels where we are very much watching WWE Smackdown. Sean absolutely spot on. The plant in question was indeed Santino's daughter. KJ, as regards Paige Van Zandt, after realising what he was saying, says, but she'll probably still batter my face in, which I think is fair. If, for example, any of us were in a fight with Ronda Rousey, we would lose. We would 100% lose. That's just what's going to happen. Simon says, is Ricochet going to defend the IC title at Mania 38? Seems so. I mean, they're doing a championship contenders match. Seems like they've found some way to get him on the card, which is good. But he would probably still be a pre-show match. Sean says, just saw a tweet that said Aaliyah defeated Shotzi in a dark match before SmackDown. Makes sense. Lots of dark matches for the women's division at the moment, but hey, at least they're giving them a chance to get something going. So, you alright, mate? Says, evening all. I'm cutting my losses on SmackDown this week. Not a great build for Mania. Isn't next week's the lead into the Hall of Fame ceremony? Yes, it is. Next week is the lead into the Hall of Fame. Okay, so the WWE are very confused here. Angel Garza won the match. But apparently Ricochet was facing Humberto. That's what they announced before the break. So, WrestleMania match, yeah? Good pronunciation. We're going to get another Ricochet match. And that will be why they announced before the commercial break that it was going to be Ricochet versus Humberto. Not the first mistake they made tonight. They did, after all, announce accompanied by Xavier Woods. Jason says Ricochet versus Sheamus for the IC title will be a good feud. Sheamus only needs the IC title to be a Grand Slam champion. I'm sure that moment will come. We've all been speaking about it, just not for WrestleMania. He's got other things in mind. WrestleScope says that Ronda Charlotte segment was awful. I didn't really enjoy it. I'd have rather just had the recap, to be honest. J-Dub says this episode of SmackDown is like a 2-hour version of This Week in WWE recap show. Yeah. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I expect Ricochet to lose this to set up a handicap match at WrestleMania. Probably because Angel Garza. And then during the actual match, they won't be able to decide who gets the pin. So Ricochet ends up winning. That's what I'm expecting. Could be wrong, but that's what I'm expecting. Megan says, so did anyone else notice that the team's entrance implied Angel was in the match? Then the match graphic had Humberto before the break, then after the break, Angel's in the ring. Yeah, I was baffled by it. Also says, someone in the production truck is so getting their ass kicked over this. We have another commercial break. Ricochet is carrying the show this week. Where is everyone? So logically from here, we have the rest of this match finishes at about 20 past. We have the Sami Zayn, Johnny Knoxville segment, and then we have 20 minutes of the women's women's fatal four-way with a commercial break in the middle and a commercial break afterwards. Then we have Roman and Brock. All makes perfect sense. 10 Feet says, Tom is such a surprise to see the women's tag titles. They seem so irrelevant to be so much more important in the past week thanks to Sasha. Not thanks to Sasha, thanks to the booking. Sasha is in the division, but the women's tag team championships would still be featured. If you're not a regular here, 10 foot, you would be aware. If you were a regular, if you are a regular, I'm not sure. Your name isn't one I'm very familiar with. You would be aware of the plans for the tag team championships because we spoke about them here. So when it came to Sasha Banks' match, it was late decision. They were hoping that she'd be able to tag with Bayley, and then Sasha essentially chose her own partner, even though Naomi was someone the WWE wanted her to choose anyway. I think it was about a week before they announced it, I said that it was going to be a tag team championship match for Sasha. Sean says, Kurt Angle said Ronda needs to learn how to accept crowd responses. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. KJ says, is Ricochet going to smash and stack Garza and Humberto? I think so, but I think they're also going to kind of do it to each other. You know, they're going to cause their own problems, and Ricochet is going to take advantage of that. Makes sense to me. Jason Wade says, Tom, should we have a bet? How many more recaps do you think we'll have for the rest of the show? Too many. I think that's the best way of describing it. Too many. I don't know how many is too many, other than the fact that it's definitely too many. That's fair, KJ. He is right. They're responding positively for now, but she still checks on social media and the like. The thing is, she's very used to people in her YouTube shows being very positive about it. As usual, I will just reiterate, if you are currently watching on YouTube, please do remember to hit that thumbs up like button. It makes a big difference for the growth of the channel and could immediately result in more viewership for me. I'm currently at 1,053 subscribers and looking to continue growing as we do so that eventually I would be able to dedicate more time and resources to finding exclusive information that you can't get anywhere else. At the moment, I'm working with no budget, which is something that, let's be honest, most of our wrestling journalists are not struggling with. Many of the rest of them have full-time jobs in wrestling journalism, or let's say Patreons, which are earning them a hell of a lot of money for the smallest amount of stuff. So every little does help, and please do consider jumping in. Simon says, is Damian Priest versus Finn Balor being added into Mania 38 for the US title? Yes. Sean says, John Cena just retweeted a fan talking about The Miz, saying Miz is one of his favourite bad guys and WrestleMania opponents. And that is true. John Cena speaks very, very highly of his main event WrestleMania match with The Miz. He genuinely loves the guy. And I know a lot of people really didn't like that match, but if the wrestlers did, what else matters? Ricochet is just showing off at this point. Jason says, Tom, do you like that WrestleMania is a 2-night show, or did you like it better when it was just all one night? Nope. Much, much more behind the 2-night event. Because there's only so many times I can sit and listen. Sit and watch a 8-hour show that starts at 1 a.m. my time, so would finish 7, 8, 9 a.m. There are times I've had to stop watching WrestleMania before the main event because I have to go to work. And 10foot says, Tom, I like your views since starting to listen to a person without that damn rant. I try my best not to go into rants, but I do occasionally go into rant mode. I don't hate wrestling. I know that's not a popular view. Most wrestling fans seem to hate wrestling on social media, but I don't hate wrestling. Ricochet getting distracted by the tag team again. He has to keep his head in the game here. He's attacking Angel. Not necessarily the right move. The ref is counting pretty quickly. And I think someone's under the ring. He's under the ring. Humberto wins by countout. That was very well done. Exactly what I was expecting, but still. Los Lotharios versus Ricochet in a handicap Intercontinental Championship match at WrestleMania. Championship contenders match. They agreed to it. Them's the terms. Sean says it's a lot better as a 2-night event. An 8-hour show is hard to sit through. It really is. 4 hours is not easy. 3 hours was the perfect amount. They found the perfect amount of time. Then they made their weekly program in 3 hours and it just got worse. Tenfoot says maybe it's the Bella twin. And Sean says, unfortunately I see Ricochet defending on the pre-show. Yeah, me too. Sami Zayn up next. Exactly as we expected. Probably just a backstage promo. And we'll see more from Johnny Knoxville later. See, the match with Los Lotharios there that Ricochet just had has moved Sami Zayn firmly away from the Intercontinental Championship. A brief reign, but he's doing very different things right now. Sami Zayn has not fought this through. At all. Every member of Jackass will just beat the hell out of him. Sami Zayn's just so entertaining. I think I've enjoyed everything Sami Zayn has ever done. Just all of it. Oh. Of course, it's Austin Theory. Literally just being a dick. That's his whole character. He just is a dick. I won't lie, I've actually really enjoyed this feud and I don't know why. Just go in, just go in. Who was that running away down the corridor? And here comes Sasha. In the exact same segment she has been for 3 weeks. Sean says, I wish Sami was a babyface, not a fan as a heel, and I don't think he needed to turn heel. He's just too good as a bad guy. It's very similar to Triple H. He's just too good as a bad guy. Jason says, Sami Zayn would make a good Money in the Bank winner. He would. And he can always play conspiracy when he doesn't win it. Sean says, I wonder why they quit announcing where the wrestlers are from, because it's not really useful information. There is plenty more that they can announce other than someone's weight and location. It's never been useful. They were trying to emulate standard fighting concepts, but it's dropping from everywhere. Nowadays, people aren't that interested in making it look like a real fight. They want the larger-than-life characters. When you look at what Naomi's wearing, I think the phrase larger-than-life character kind of fits the bill. It's just... I know at some point we're going to get Liv versus Naomi versus Carmella versus Natalya. But tonight, we're just getting a perfect collection of people. 2 people there to brutalize, 2 people there to be brutalized, first and foremost. Then it's just a wonderful mix of experience and a little bit of innocence in there when it comes to it. We have plenty of people who are familiar with MMA style. It's just a wonderful combination of people. Bailey says, who was the last wrestler from Parts Unknown? I think that was still The Undertaker, to be honest. Or was he always Death Valley? I think he was always Death Valley, actually. I don't know. Sean says, was Triple H's last match against Batista at WrestleMania or against Randy? I do believe it was against Randy Orton, but I will actually double check. Basically, when I say double check, I'm just going to Google it. What was Triple H's last match? Untelevised card in Tokyo on June 29th, 2019. His last televised match was a few weeks earlier, June 7, 2019, against longtime rival Randy Orton in Saudi Arabia. There you go, Randy Orton. 10-foot says, Tom, do you like Bayley as a face or a heel? Both. I like Bayley. I think she's a great wrestler. I'm enjoying this run as a heel, or like her latest character, because I just feel she was able to express herself a lot more. I feel the face character, and this isn't Bayley's doing, this is the character that's the issue, is very limiting to her. It basically locks her in a little box and says, this is what you are and this is all you're going to be able to be. When you do this, you do your hair. When you do this, you do stand up and you go. When you do this, you go, ah, because that's what they were teaching people in NXT at the time. You still see it. Carmella does it. She'll hit someone a few times, then she'll stand in the middle of the ring and scream and just do a circle. Becky Lynch does it. She gets someone in the corner, screams, says straight fire, does that, and then goes for it. She's stopped doing that now, thankfully. Everyone who came from NXT at the time did it. Everyone. It was infuriating. It was horrible. I don't know why they were training people to do that, but they did. Nakamura still does it. That's what they were doing. They tried to get Samoa Joe to do it. That's where the practice ended. Miami Heat says, WWE don't care about Ricochet, lost 2 times tonight. Yeah, to get him on the WrestleMania card. With a week left and a couple of days, they've just got Ricochet an interesting program for WrestleMania. Yeah, he had to lose 2 times to do it, but it was distractions both times, it wasn't, clean losses, and it means he gets on the WrestleMania card. Would you say they cared about him more if they had him not lose and he didn't have a match at WrestleMania? Which is your preference? To lose now and get onto WrestleMania, or to win now and not wrestle at WrestleMania? What's your personal preference? We are heading into our final half hour. We have 1 match and 1 main event segment to come. Pat McAfee is back. He has a pencil in his hand, and that's important. Sean says, just saw an advertisement for Raw coming to my state. Alexa wasn't in the advertisement. Yeah, they're not advertising Alexa at the moment. She's not on TV. And Brock's not planned to be there after WrestleMania. We are now discussing Triple H. They don't really have time to do that, Miami. They are showing love for Triple H. Pat McAfee as well, putting the man over. Michael Cole putting the man over. You gotta remember, Michael Cole was the guy who had the t-shirts thrown over his head with called a hermaphrodite. That's how he started. Okay, so Natalya and Shayna got the job as entrants. The tag team champions, Carmella and Zelina Vega, got the job as entrants. Rhea Ripley gets a proper entrance. And can I just say, as Liv's attire gets closer and closer to Rhea Ripley's, I enjoy more and more this entrance. I think I covered all my bases there. I'm feeling good about that. Megan says, I was going to ask why they had Sasha and Naomi enter before the ad break if they were going to do this, but I think I already know the answer. Yep. Gotta try and convince you not to change the channel. They're panicking. They look like such a good team. Like, this came out of nowhere, but also, also. Chad says, not official, but Shane McMahon, All Elite, and on live TV is going to call Tony Khan Daddy. It's not official because it's not true. Not a word of that. Sean says, I still believe Sasha and Naomi leave Mania as a tag champions. Me too. And Megan says, Zelina and Shayna didn't even have their entrances shown. Yep, nothing. Literally nothing. Oh, and now Sasha and Rhea briefly tried to double team Shayna, but the heels have run away for a moment. Which means we get Sasha and Rhea in the ring together. They were expecting more from the crowd there. Bailey says the Rhea Liv team seems to work better than Rhea Nikki. Yeah, Rhea and Nikki didn't work. It just did not work. It was basically, yeah, we have nothing for you two. Do you want to be tag team champions? It was promising. It was something. It kept them on TV. But this one seems like it's going places. Rhea and Liv as a team just gels better. And I think they've actually tried a lot more to make these two look like one unit. Even if it is just the attire changes that we're seeing, they like each other. You can tell that, and that's something you don't see a lot of. These are just two women who genuinely like talking to each other, genuinely like spending time together. You saw that in the 6-woman tag when they were on the same team as Bianca. You saw that. It connected. It worked. Oh, it's no DQ apparently. Massive brawl. Another commercial break. Another commercial break. Austin Palmeter says my volume isn't working. If anyone else is listening right now, please let me know if my volume is indeed not working, so that I can have a look at that. Sean says Bliss Cross was better than Rhea and Nikki as a team. Yeah, that worked. Sean, I wouldn't call them the new Riot Squad. The Riot Squad is no longer together. Just because one member of a team is in a new team doesn't mean we have to bring in the names of anyone else. KJ says Zelina and Shayna could have got entrances if they didn't do so much recaps. I agree. Thank you, KJ. Appreciate that. It's really not that hard to get people over. Just treat them like stars already. Vote to Bray Wyatt. So we are currently watching what will be our main event from a wrestling point of view. That being the Fatal 4-Way Women's match. Sasha Banks, Liv Morgan, Zelina Vega, and Rhea Ripley. So far, Shayna Baszler, not been that involved. Zelina Vega, not been that involved. And because it's no DQ, there's a big-ass brawl going on. On the outside, for no real reason. But it's a commercial break as we speak. Once we go back, I'm expecting at least one more commercial break, because I don't expect the main event to be more than 10-15 minutes, let's be honest. Most of which will be Roman's entrance. I don't feel I need to tell you that. You all know that. KJ says, Nikki Cross, in my opinion, would have fit more with Rhea. It was Nikki Ash instead. No one on the roster would fit teaming up with that. Not because it's a bad gimmick, you literally have to make another hero. I see where you're coming from. I do agree Nikki Cross would work better with Rhea Ripley than Nikki Ash. However, I do disagree when it comes to no one else would fit, because I do feel this version of Nikki Cross and Doudrop actually gel very nicely together. Sean says, to all the Sasha fans that say WWE doesn't care about Sasha, she's been in the main event 3 weeks in a row. What do you have to say now? If people say that the WWE don't care about Sasha, then they have decided that with no evidence. In spite of evidence. And no amount of literal evidence will convince them otherwise. Take it from someone who has people telling them that Sorry, let me rephrase that. Taken from someone who has heard several times people say to me, here's a guy who admitted he made up stories. 1, I've never admitted to making up stories because 2, I've never made up stories. And they will never find evidence of what they're claiming because there is no evidence. It doesn't exist. But people will hear something from someone and decide that's definitely true. Nobody cares about facts anymore. Nobody cares about the truth. Nobody gives a shit. Bailey says, is Shayna's lack of mic skills keeping her from getting a push? Not really. I think what's keeping her from getting a push is primarily that they don't really have many people who work her style very well. So she's still being featured. She's never been featured consistently though. So after the match with Becky Lynch, she dropped off a cliff a little bit. Becky Lynch, of course, then left. The plan apparently was for Shayna Baszler to win the Money in the Bank and still become champion, but then Becky Lynch chose Asuka. She could have chosen Baszler. She decided to choose Asuka. Which is why I always find it very interesting when I hear people talk about, oh, Becky Lynch wanted to lose to Shayna. She had a choice of who to give that championship to. She didn't choose Shayna. Zelina Vega trying to be an opportunist. It's not working out for her. And she's doing a scream in the middle of the ring. KJ says, yeah, and Banks is a 9-time champ, has been in a title match every year at WrestleMania, hasn't been pinned since the draft last year, and you can say a lot more. We all can. Yes, but once again, KJ, what you're doing there is providing facts and evidence. What you should be doing is whining and complaining, because that's what people care about. People don't want reality. They want people to agree with them. It's always somebody got it right in the latest series. Anyone else feel bad for Zelina Vega here? Smooth by Sasha. Very quickly done. Very smooth. Rhea's just gonna... Lovely. Absolutely brutal dropkick there from Rhea Ripley. Austin said, is Smackdown tape next week? No, not to my knowledge. KJ says, do you think it's hard to book Fatal 4-Way matches? Yes. Not necessarily to book, but to produce, definitely. Because you've got 4 different bodies in there, all of which are doing their own individual thing. You have to keep it entertaining. So you have to find a way to make sure that people are laid out individually. You have moments between individuals. Oh, lovely little combination there. And then you have combinations of 3 people. Every now and then, 4 people. You know, as they gel together. But yeah, what you see a lot is people rolling to the outside. A lovely sunset code red there. I think Shayna Baszler missed her cue ever so slightly, but it worked out. I don't know if the sunset code red is Zelina's finisher at the moment, but it was nice. I'll say that. Sean says, so Becky would have lost the belt to Asuka if she didn't leave for pregnancy. No, not what I said. Not what I said. There was no match planned between Becky Lynch and Asuka. There was a continued feud planned between Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler, and Shayna Baszler would eventually win the championship from Becky. Becky was due to take time off at that point anyway. Again, something I reported exclusively on these channels. But when Becky said to the WWE, I'm pregnant, I can't wrestle, it became clear that when it comes to Money in the Bank, Becky would have to leave the championship with someone. They let Becky decide who she wanted to, and instead of following the actual plot line that was planned and giving it to Shayna, she chose to give it to Asuka, ensuring that Shayna Baszler would not be winning the championship. Sasha Banks has picked up a win in the Fatal 4-Way, the Banks statement forcing Zelina Vega to tap out. Shayna Baszler and Rhea Ripley heavily involved, but not to a degree at which they would be involved in the finish. We're getting a replay of the finish, which was fun. Just a bit of chaos on the outside. Rhea Ripley selling the Hurricane Rana very well. Just very clinical action. And Vega taps. The champion, of course. The WWE have to get their shots. And the shot they had to get was Zelina Vega holding and cradling both championships. And here comes Roman. We still have 2 commercial breaks. So I'd imagine we're going to get a break now. And then a break when Roman starts his entrance or something in that regard. I'm not sure. Either way, we're going to get physical. Physical. I want to get physical. Let's get into physics, yeah. There's always such a wonderful reaction when Roman appears on screen. Paul Heyman is scared. Let's not forget that last week Roman ran away from Brock. This week, apparently not concerned at all. KJ says, okay, I'll switch it. Banks took a bump. Oh my god, if they cared, she wouldn't get hit. Well, I mean, that's absolutely right. You know how wrestling works. The most important thing to any wrestler is if they're pushing you, you only win via squash. At no point do you ever get touched. KJ says, yeah, sorry, I meant to say produce. That's probably why we don't see much of them. Yeah, pretty much. It got awkward after a while. Even, for example, some of the really well-received triple threats, think Seth Rollins, John Cena, Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar spends a lot of time not involved in that match. Austin says, how are they going to do SmackDown the Hall of Fame? Well, they're going to do SmackDown, then they're going to do the Hall of Fame. There is absolutely no reason to pre-record anything. They do one, then they finish that one, and then they start the next one. Which is exactly what I'm going to do with my streams next week. Same thing. Sean says, in my opinion, the Banks statement seems to be protected. It always ends Sasha's matches. Well, yeah, finishes are protected. When it comes to submissions, you can't really kick out of a submission. So it always stays much more protected. KJ says, Banks wins again. Lost last week technically, but hasn't been pinned or submitted since the draft. Indeed, losing by DQ is not the same and shouldn't really be considered. So I did see quite a few people saying, yeah, but Banks was booked to lose anyway. So what? People win and people lose. Let's not pretend otherwise. And Sean says it's possible Tyson produces Fatal 4-Way match. Yeah, probably. He covers most of the women's division, so I'd find it very likely. If you're not already aware, just as we come into the last 20 minutes of the show, today Triple H had an interview released in which he stated that he has retired from wrestling. He is returning to NXT shortly, but will never wrestle again. If you'd like to hear more of our discussion on that, it was in our earlier on live show, which you can check out immediately after this if you would like. Austin says, because it's a short Hall of Fame, Vader Taker, Sharmell Shad Taker's going to be long. Even if it wasn't, they would still have no issue with it. It's not that big a deal. Okay, it's genuinely not a big deal. They finish one show, they start the next one. They've been doing that with 205 Live and now Level Up for years. Years, with no issue whatsoever. It's the same thing. So Brock Lesnar has spent the last 2 hours sitting backstage breaking things. Roman Reigns, who was booked for this show, only turned up for the last 15 minutes. What if there'd been traffic? What if there'd been traffic? I'm going to do a tweet on that. Okay, that could be a funny one. Okay, so I'd love to have Roman Reigns' job. You turn up 15 minutes before this show ends. I can only assume that if there's traffic, You just go home. What a wonderful life. Okay, what did George Bush do? Okay. The Undertaker looks so different nowadays. So different. What? What? The Undertaker will be driving the pace car at the NASCAR race on Sunday. What the hell is this world we've wandered into? What the hell? Ah, well, there we go. We will indeed have an Andre the Giant Battle Royal next Friday. And yeah, as Megan says, guess this means we're not getting a US title match for Mania. Damian Priest and Finn Balor both in the match. Looking at that collection, I'm thinking Shanky, to be honest. Ooh, okay. So it's not going to be a handicap match. It's going to be a triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship. Ricochet against Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo. That's surprising to me because Damian Priest and Finn Balor have the better story. But to be fair, they still could book a US title match in the Battle Royal. It's not impossible, but I don't see it now. Okay, it seems like we're running down the SmackDown side of the card to kill some time so that when Roman starts his entrance, they can have another commercial break. Okay, not just the SmackDown side of the card, we're doing the whole damn thing. They're just telling us everything planned for night one. I would love it. I would love it if they accidentally showed the graphic for Seth versus Cody. The graphic's quite nice. They're showing Stone Cold. He's pointing at you. Sean says, I get what you mean, Tom. Have Finn defend the belt in a battle royal like Dean did and lost the belt to Sheamus. Honestly, I was more thinking of Damian Priest winning and then challenging him at Mania. Give him the payday. Give him the payday. Roman is on the way. Maybe many call him the Tribal Chief. He calls himself the Tribal Chief. That's his name. He's Roman the Tribal Chief Reigns. You wouldn't call Randy Macho Man Savage. They call him Macho Man, would you? KJ says, the graphic is quite nice. Tom, have you seen it? Has Cody already taken WWE pictures? No comment. There may or may not be renders already made. There may or may not be renders already made. I'll never give it a name. I get nosy sometimes. Put it this way. There's a reason I was the first person to say it's Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. And that's literally fact. With evidence to support it. That I was the first one to say it. Roman Reigns en route to the ring. Notice Roman Reigns is not en route to his dressing room where Brock Lesnar is apparently waiting. Also, something I feel I can guarantee. Brock Lesnar unlikely to come down to the ring during the commercial break. Sean says Edge versus AJ avatars on night 2, so I guess it wasn't moved to night 1. There we go. Yep, they are going through night 2. Pat McAfee and Austin Theory. I'm not sure who first said it had been moved to night 1. I haven't seen anything of that. I'm still pretty confident we're going to get Cody versus Seth on night 2. Yep. On Sunday, Edge versus AJ Styles. Which is just going to be so fun. Like, I just want to take a moment, just a moment, to talk about the fact that Edge versus AJ is going to be one hell of a match. Sean says Pat and Austin open night 2 or AJ and Edge. I would probably be opening night 2 with Seth and Cody. I'd have Seth turn up at the end of the kickoff show and claim squatters' rights just in the middle of the ring. That's what I would do. And then just as the kickoff show is ending, Cody Rhodes makes his appearance. And then it cuts off. And the actual WrestleMania WrestleMania package, as it were, starts for night 2. That's what I would do. Guarantee you're getting a lot of purchases after that. That's a kickoff show. So Roman Reigns arrived at SmackDown 10 minutes ago. And now, 10 minutes later, he's arrived at the ring. There's other stuff being on the screen, but hell if I know what. Megan says there have been 7 winners of the Andre Memorial Battle Royal. Guess how many are still with the company right now? I want to say 2. I only know of 1, but I want to say 2. KJ says they should have AJ and Edge open, or even Seth versus Cody. Don't announce who's kicking off the show, just hit someone's music. Like Seth's. Megan, would you be able to give me the second person, please? Must be someone recent. Tenfoot says, who do you think is the best female wrestler in WWE? I really rate Charlotte. I think she's an incredible wrestler. I think Sonya Deville is very good as well. I think there's a lot of people who haven't been able to show what they're all about. But I think Charlotte's the one for me. Roman just basking in the glory. Sorry, forget I said that. The cheap pop still works. Jermaine says, I find it funny they didn't announce the women's tag title match. Is it still happening at WrestleMania? Because they didn't mention it at all or show a graphic for it. Fair. They missed out on a couple, didn't they? SmackDown Tag Team Championship match, I don't think they mentioned that. KG says, Corbin is the only one I can think of, and Uso. Corbin and Jey is what I was thinking as well. Corbin for definite is the one that I remembered. I knew there was someone more recently, but I wasn't sure who it was. Paul Heyman's panic is very out of character. It is indeed Corbin and Jey Uso. Thank you, Megan. No sign of the Usos as of yet. I'd imagine we're now going to see Brock Lesnar start walking towards the ring, then commercial. KJ says, I almost said Jinder, but Mojo won that one. Yeah, the Gronk got involved, didn't it? No sign of Brock Lesnar. Oh, I wonder where he is. I wonder. Pardon me. Sean is asking about the North American title. I would say Carmelo Hayes retains, personally. A Suplex City chant from the crowd. And Paul Heyman looking genuinely terrified. That man's face is just magnificent. Starting to feel like there's not going to be a final commercial break. He's on TV. Oh, he's going after the vehicle. He's not interested in being you, Roman. He just wants to destroy everything you buy. I can imagine Corbin in this role perfectly when he had no money. Bring the pickaxe to the ring, Brock. No weapons allowed at WrestleMania. That's interesting. I love how he just threw it away. Sean says, would Brock have fit in during the Attitude Era? Yes. No questions asked. Imagine a prolonged Brock Lesnar versus Stone Cold Steve Austin feud. Imagine it. Imagine a proper Brock Lesnar versus Triple H feud, but Triple H is still with DX when it happens. So Brock Lesnar's doing this to the DX Express. It's easy. Moneymaker says, do you think Sasha and Naomi win the tag titles at WrestleMania? Yeah, I do. I've thought that since I first announced that it was going to be a fatal four-way match, fatal four-way tag team match for the Women's Tag Team Championships. I said at the time, Sasha's going to be the one winning it. Paul Heyman sees Brock first, standing on the announce table behind them. God, he's got so much hair now. Okay, Roman, do something about it. Just like to say, once again, Brock has left the WWE Championship under the care of Pat McAfee. Roman has security. That won't last. Sean says Sasha wins at Mania. She'll tie Nikki with the most reigns at 3. Cool. The titles are synonymous with her. She made them happen alongside Bayley. KG asks the questions we all ask when it comes to security guards. How many of these security guards will be superstars in the near future? Well, it depends how well they get beaten down by Brock. You know, it's a selling lesson. You've got to know yourself. The Usos are here to rush Roman away and act as buffers. Jacob says Roman looking like a punk tonight. Tribal Chief shouldn't be running away. I agree. He's not very Tribal Chief, which is why I think it's a little bit playing possum. What I do like is that despite this being a unification match, the WWE Championship barely featured, barely exists. The Universal Championship, still coveted, still honoured, still protected. WWE Championship, nothing, nobody cares. Brock has himself a buckled chair. Brock has himself a new chair. And he's just going to keep going. I like that. The security guard in question showed for it. He got up a little bit so that it would look more impactful. Why is Brock chasing commentary away? That is a proper face moment right there. Standing on the table with a championship and a chair, and now Roman wants to talk, but backstage. Sean says, who do you think WWE should put the WWE title on to make it cared about? Seth. And KJ says, I think this Mania will exceed expectations. I think it's a good thing that the expectations are very low. The WWE often do their best work when they are not facing much in the way of expectations. I think they finished ahead of schedule there on SmackDown. Because now they're just killing time. Feels to me like that Roman promo was just a case of, Roman, we need to kill like a minute. Can you just give us like a minute long promo? Sean, I have no idea how things are going to be come SummerSlam. That is months away and probably many different wrestlers away. that has been WWE Smackdown. We have been streaming for roughly 2 hours. It is 2 a.m. and I'm going to wrap it up there. Our next show will be Friday night. Not Friday, today's Friday night. Will be Sunday night, as per usual. So I look forward to seeing all of you then. But in the meantime, nice and quick, I'm just going to say that I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. And I'll see you all very soon.